Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is Tuesday, I hope you all are doing well. We're going to be doing a player ratings for the entire 2020-2021 season this morning. I thought we'd sit down, I think we done it last season as well, and just basically give every single Everton player a rating between 1 and 10 for the entire season as a whole. This isn't the player ratings for the Manchester City game. That video is already up on the channel. We did that on Sunday night after the game, straight after the game. So this isn't specifically for that game against Manchester City. So if you're looking and thinking, oh, Cam, how has so-and-so got a 7, how has so-and-so got a 9, he was absolutely awful in the game on Sunday. It's not for the game on Sunday. That individual player ratings video is up on the channel. This is for the entire season as a whole. I thought we could sit down and individually mark each player on basically how good of a season they've had and how impressive they've been in an Everton shirt. We're also going to do a little rewards sort of section towards the end of the stream where we talk about my player of the season, young player of the season, most improved, goal of the season, all of that good stuff as well. So stick around until the end of the live stream and that'll be coming up around then. But I thought we'd go through every single squad player at Everton Football Club and basically rate them between 1 and 10 for the 2020-2021 season as a whole. Like I said, we did it last season. We're also going to be doing a full in-depth season review. That'll be across 2 live streams. First, it'll be tomorrow morning around about 9 o'clock, 9:30 again, and then the second will be Thursday morning at the same time. And then once we've gotten those 2 out the way, we can start getting into some more wider discussions about Everton Football Club, be it transfers for the summer, be it what's going wrong with the football club, what needs to change. We can talk about various different things. I'm sure there'll be a lot of random transfer rumours that are flying around because it is the start of silly season, as they call it, isn't it, where Everton start to get linked with every single player under the sun and we end up signing nobody and we actually sign somebody completely different. So we'll be talking about all of that over the next coming weeks and months, but I thought we'd sit down and we'll have a little bit of fun with this today because let's be honest, it's been a disappointing season for Everton Football Club. There's been some very, very good moments. The Merseyside derby win comes into mind. You know, if you'd have said to me at the start of the season, Cam, Everton are going to win at Anfield for the first time in 20 odd years, I'd have been absolutely made up. In fact, I probably wouldn't have even asked where we finished in the league because they've just been so happy with that in itself. We've had the win against Arsenal, of course, away from home, the win against Arsenal at Goodison. We beat Tottenham away, Leicester away. We had the start of the season where we went unbeaten for the first 7 games. We were top of the league. But overall, like I said, all of those positives and all of those high moments, you know, they're fantastic and they're all things that we'll talk about over the next coming days or so. And it hasn't been a complete disaster of a season. It really, really hasn't. It's not like we're sitting here saying, oh my God, this is the worst season ever. It's just been very disappointing considering where we've finished. I mean, Everton have finished 10th this season, below the likes of Leeds and Arsenal. And I'm not saying that to disrespect those 2 clubs, but for the majority of the season, from whenever it started, August to now, or September to now, we were above both of those teams for you know, the majority of the 38 games that we've played. So it's very, very disappointing to on the final day finish below them. I think I seen a stat on Sunday afternoon and it was that the lowest league position Everton had been in this season before Sunday was 9th. So the lowest we'd been for the entire season was 9th place and we've ended up finishing 10th. Which is just, it's proper Everton, isn't it? You couldn't, no other club would achieve that. No other club would go an entire season in the top 9 and then on the last day of the season finish 10th. You just wouldn't have it whatsoever. So it's been a disappointment. Let's be honest. It's been a frustration, and ultimately it's been a season, I think, of reflection for Carlo Ancelotti and Marcel Brands, and certainly reflection on the ability of this squad and the ability of these players, and why, you know, we need to go out in the summer now and bring in some real good quality, quick, physical players with pace, agility, mobility, athleticism, and get rid of some of these players that just simply aren't good enough whatsoever for Everton Football Club and shouldn't be here. Anyway, let's get into the live stream. What I want as well, if you're watching live in the live comments, get involved. You know, when I say a player's rating out and when I give my explanation as to why I've given them those ratings, get involved in the comments. Let us know your rating. Let us know your reasons. Let us know if you think I'm wrong, if you think I'm right. If you're watching as a YouTube video, please do so in the YouTube comments as well, and we'll get involved with as many of them as we possibly can. Player ratings are always, you know, the I was going to say the most difficult. They're not the most difficult video to record, but they're the video that always splits opinion, really. They're the video that you'd always get sort of comments saying, oh, how have you given him a 6 and only him a 7, or how have you given him a 4 and him a 3? And, you know, it's obviously, it's all different opinions, and opinions is, you know, what makes football, you know, the game that we all know and love. So if you could get involved with your opinions and your thoughts in the comments, that would be greatly appreciated as well. Anyway, let's get straight into it. I've gone off the Everton website and the list of players that Everton have listed for this season. I've thrown in a couple of young players in there as well who did make appearances. You might say, what's the point, because they were only on for 5 or 10 minutes, but I just thought I'd throw them in anyway because they've made an appearance in an Everton shirt this season, which I think is warrants them being given a rating. But we'll go first, obviously starting with the goalkeepers. We then go into the defence, midfield and forward line, etc. So let's start with number 1, Jordan Pickford. Jordan, for me, has had, again, another season of, I want to say inconsistency, because he didn't start it very well, and obviously he had his struggles at the start of the season. He had the whole Merseyside derby debacle in October, which again, the majority of that wasn't necessarily his fault. He was absolutely vilified all over the media, you know, for what was clearly an accidental challenge. But realistically, Jordan Pickford, for me, has had a good season. In fact, he's had a very, very good season. And in fact, I'd go as far as to say he's arguably our most improved player, certainly since the turn of 2021 and since that game against Liverpool at Anfield. Jordan Pickford hasn't put a foot wrong. He's been absolutely faultless. And if Jordan Pickford had performed, you know, the way he has performed for the last 4 or 5 weeks, even longer than that, last 2 or 3 months, if Jordan Pickford had performed, you know, that well for the entire season, he'd be our player of the season, no doubt about it, because he's kept us in games, he's won us games. The game against West Brom at Goodison Park, he won us it with a massive save early on. The game against Southampton, the game against West Brom was away from home. The game against Southampton at Goodison Park, again, he won us that with an absolutely massive save from Yannick Vestergaard in the last couple of minutes of that game. He won us the game against Arsenal with a big save against Martinelli. Again, even the other day against Manchester City, we lost 5-0, but he was man of the match. He was absolutely brilliant. If it wasn't for Jordan Pickford, it'd have probably been in double figures. So I've given Jordan for the season an 8. And the reason I've done that is, you might say, Cam, he didn't start very well. And yes, he's been brilliant since the Merseyside derby, but that's February and a season starts in August, and that's still, you know, whatever it is, 6 months, 5 months, something like that. But I've been massively, massively impressed with Jordan Pickford this season, because he started the season in the same vein as that really ended last season. And that was inconsistent, you know, making stupid mistakes, lacking concentration, losing his head a little bit. And Jordan could have quite easily continued this season in that same vein, really. And we'd all be sitting here now saying we need a new goalkeeper in the summer, we need to go out and sign a new goalkeeper. You know, arguably the biggest compliment you can give to Jordan Pickford is that we're now all sitting here not even talking about bringing in a new goalkeeper in the summer. Obviously, we know we need a backup for Jordan, because, you know, Robin Olsen's only on loan, and as of now, Robin Olsen will never put an Everton shirt on again unless he signs on a permanent deal. So that's a decision that the club have to make. That's a decision that Robin Olsen has to make, whether or not he wants to stay. But like I said, we were all sitting here last season and you know, saying we need a new number 1. You know, forget backup goalkeepers, we need the new number 1. Jordan Pickford isn't good enough. Whereas now we're sitting here saying, actually, do you know what? Jordan's had a very, very good end to the season, and for the majority of the season, he's been very, very good. I mean, 33 appearances for Everton, 10 clean sheets. I think he's got his highest save ratio as an Everton player, which, again, you know, you might say that just means we're letting too many shots get in on him, but it also means that he's saving them. And I think Jordan's one player, and it's a rare example of a player, really, because I don't think anybody else has been like this. If you're enjoying, by the way, please do hit that like button. We will get in the comments. I see Liam's donated £5. Thank you very, very much, Liam. Really, really do appreciate it, mate. Honestly, it means a massive amount. He says, keep it up, mate. Got a day off, so can sit down in the cupboard and enjoy this. Is right, mate. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much for the donation. We will get in the comments in a second, like I said. But I think Jordan's a rare example of an Everton player who has responded well to not having a crowd in stadiums. He's responded well to to not having that distraction, because I think we'd seen previously, and not just this season, obviously not this season because we haven't had the crowd, but previous seasons, as you know, I remember the game against Newcastle away from home, I remember the game against Wolves at Goodison Park as well. When he makes mistakes, he reacts to the crowd. If they're jumping on his back, he'll smile, he'll pull his tongue out. When the Newcastle fans are booing him, he has a little laugh, he gives it the old pump of the chest, and that's all well and good if he's putting in 10 out of 10 performances and he's making consistently brilliant saves, but he wasn't at that point. He was making stupid mistakes, he was letting stupid goals in, so it was all coming back to sort of bite him on the arse really. Whereas I think having no crowd and the lack of fans in the stadium and the lack of that sort of pressure and those eyes on him has really helped Jordan, because it's helped him sort of just simmer down and focus on the most important thing, and that's his performances and that's his concentration on the pitch. Not to worry about what's going on around you, because there's nothing going on around you. You're playing in an empty stadium, you're effectively playing a training session. Just worry about what's going on the pitch, and worry about your concentration, worry about how you're performing and what you need to do and where you need to be positional wise, and I think Jordan has been excellent at doing that this season. And like I said, for me, again, we're going to go into our sort of end the season awards towards the end of the live stream, and I want to talk about my most improved player as part of that. But Jordan for me is certainly been up there. I'm not going to give away who it is, but Jordan is certainly up there. Like I said, since the turn of the year and since the Merseyside derby at Anfield, he's been absolutely excellent. Let's not forget, this was a lad who was absolutely vilified in the media for 4, 5, 6 months, disgustingly vilified by, journalists who shouldn't even be able to call themselves journalists. It was that disgusting. And, again, the club stood up for him in terms of security, but he had to deal with that himself. Him and his family had to deal with the constant threats. That he had death threats, he had threats of violence, he had promises from certain men that, we all know that when they promise things, they happen, and all of this nonsense. And Jordan had to deal with that pressure. He had to deal with that. Let's be honest, being vilified in the media for what was a bad tackle. Yes, it was a bad challenge. Should he have been sent off? Absolutely. It was a silly tackle to make, but it wasn't on purpose. He didn't do it maliciously. Yes, unfortunately, it's ended in a player being injured and having to spend the rest of the season out injured, but it's not like Jordan Pickford went in and thought, I'm going to purposely injure this player. He didn't at all. It was accidental. It was a poor challenge. It was a silly decision to make, and it was an accidental situation. And from that, every single day in the newspaper for 3, 4, 5 months consecutively, no matter what else happened in the world, every single day in pretty much every newspaper across the country, every journalist talking about it. They were talking about how Jordan Pickford should be put in prison, Jordan Pickford should be banned from football until Van Dijk's fit, Jordan Pickford should be this, Jordan Pickford should be that. All of this nonsense for what was a bad challenge. Usually when a player makes a bad challenge, it's talked about for a couple of days, and then it just, you move on really. Certainly when the next group of fixtures comes up the week after, you move on, and that's it. The Pickford challenge was in the papers for months and months and months. And I remember leading into the Merseyside derby at Anfield, there'd been about 2 weeks where it hadn't been mentioned. That was how long it was in the paper for. There'd been about 2 weeks where it hadn't been mentioned, and then everybody jumped back on it because the derby was coming up at Anfield. Is it time for Liverpool's revenge? Will Liverpool get their revenge on Jordan Pickford? Is he going to make another blunder, this, that and the other? And Jordan turned up and put in the best derby performance of a goalkeeper I've ever seen in my lifetime. He was absolutely exceptional. He made 4 or 5 big saves to deny Salah, to deny Mane. I think one was to deny Trent Alexander-Arnold as well. And he was single-handedly, we performed very well in that, and Richarlison scored, and obviously Gylfi scored the pen, but Jordan Pickford, was a massive part of that 3 points, and he put away all of that criticism, he put away all of those demons, and he turned up. He settled himself down, he concentrated, and he performed. And he deserves an awful lot of credit for that. So Jordan Pickford for me is getting an 8 for the entire season. I think, like I said, he started a little bit ropey. He was making some similar mistakes, ones that we all sort of expected from him at that time. We had obviously the whole Merseyside derby debacle. He then spent a few weeks out injured. We had Robin Olsen come in. We had all of the stuff about him needing security on his house and stuff like that. But since he's come back from like I said, February, that Merseyside derby, he's been absolutely exceptional. So Jordan's getting an 8, 33 appearances, 10 clean sheets for Everton. If you're enjoying, by the way, please do hit that like button. Only takes a second. Liam's donated another £5 to the live stream. Thank you very much, Liam. He says, remember I said the tenner, haha. Thank you very much, mate. Honestly, it means a massive amount to me. João Virginia then. I'm going to give him a 4. Look, he's only played one game, and I'm not saying that in that game he was a 4, he wasn't. He was about a 7, 8 out of 10, wasn't he? Let's be honest, it was the game against Manchester City in the FA Cup, was it the Carabao Cup? I think it was the FA Cup. And he made 3 or 4, again, really, really good saves. He had a sort of Jan Mucha performance, didn't he? He was very good on that day, João Virginia, and it was unfortunate that, the goal that we conceded ended up being sort of, I think we lost 3-0 or 3-1 on that day, ended up being in the last sort of 10 minutes of the game, and he'd made a great save and it bounced off the bar, and unfortunately it landed to, I think it was Riyad Mahrez who was always going to put it in the back of the net. But again, like I said, this isn't purely on that performance. I'm not going to sit here and give João Virginia an 8 out of 10 for the season because he put in one really good performance. He's only played once. So in the grand scheme of our season and how he's affected our season, he hasn't really affected it. Granted, when he played, he was very good, and he put in a solid performance. But yeah, let's be honest, he's only played one game, and like I said, maybe you might think that's a bit harsh, but again, it's not. This isn't a player ratings based off those individual games. It's a player ratings based off the entire season, and João Virginia wouldn't even be on this list if it wasn't for that game. So yeah, I'm going to give him a 4. Robin Olsen, I'm going to give him a 6.5. Again, like I said, he's come in, and I think one thing that we can really, really give Robin Olsen praise for and ultimately thank him for, not only is being able to come in and put in decent performances when Jordan's obviously been out injured or when Jordan's needed a little bit of a rest. There's one thing Carlo Ancelotti said, at the very start of the season. I remember when Robin Olsen first come in for Jordan Pickford, it was the first time Jordan Pickford had missed a Premier League game since he's been at Everton Football Club. That's three and a half years nearly of straight consistent Premier League games of football, and all of a sudden Carlo Ancelotti's come in and 1 week Jordan's not injured, he's not unfit, he gets taken out. I actually think it was the Newcastle game after the Merseyside derby, to be honest with you, and Carlo was asked, is this because of the derby stuff, is this because of the the what's gone on in the derby last week, all of this, all of that, and Carlo just said, no, I like to rotate me goalkeepers like I like to rotate any other part of the squad, like I'll rotate me strikers, like I'll rotate me midfielders, I just like to rotate goalkeepers. And like I said, I think one of the biggest compliments we can give to Robin Olsen is that he's come in and being a big, tall, physical international goalkeeper, he's ultimately helped in Jordan Pickford's season, because he's helped Jordan Pickford step his game up. He's helped Jordan Pickford actually look at himself and go, do you know what, I need to improve here. Previously for Jordan Pickford at Everton, he was having a look over his shoulder, he was seeing Martin Stecklenberg, who was in his mid to late 30s on the bench, thinking, he's not getting in over me. He was seeing Jonas Leisel, who wasn't very good, let's be honest, on the bench, thinking, he's not getting in over me. And he was seeing João Virginia in the squad, thinking, he's too young, he's inexperienced, he's definitely not getting in. So this is what I'm saying, and this is something we're going to talk about an awful lot more in the next coming weeks and months, is competition for places. It's so vitally important that Everton have at least 2 very, very good players per position, or that's at least where we try and get towards in the next coming seasons, because players might come out in interviews and say they give 110% every single week, or that they've got no distractions, or that they work, they give their all every single time they step onto the pitch, and that's fine, they can come out and say that, but subconsciously, a lot of those players, certainly if they've got no competition, will be thinking, it doesn't matter really how I perform, because I'm going to be here next week, I'll be in the team next week, I'll be in the team the week after, I'll be in the team the week after that, because I've got nobody that's giving me a kick up the arse. Whereas as soon as you bring somebody in like a Robin Olsen for Jordan Pickford, or, I don't know, maybe a Leon Bailey for Richarlison, for example, then it gives that player, i.e. your Richarlison, your Jordan Pickford, a look over the shoulder and think, if I don't start nailing down and concentrating and really working hard on my performances, I'm going to be out the team here. I'm going to be sitting on the bench. And Jordan, especially this season, will have been thinking, if I'm kept out the team by Robin Olsen and I'm sitting on the bench for every week, I've got no chance of getting in that England team in the summer. I've got no chance of getting in that Euros team. So I've got to shape myself up a bit. I've got to work hard. And as we've just said with Jordan, you've seen a real attitude change from Jordan Pickford this season. He's matured an awful lot over the course of the last 4, 5, 6 months or so. And I honestly think a lot of that's down to the fact that he's had to look over his shoulder for the first time in his Everton career, and he can't adopt this cocky, arrogant, doesn't matter how I perform because I'll be in here next week anyway because I'm irreplaceable. He's looked over the shoulder and gone, actually, the manager's brought in a big, strong, physical It's, Swedish international professional goalkeeper who's got a lot of experience, who's come in for certain Premier League games this season and performed relatively well. He come in against Leeds and done well, coming against Man United and was iffy. I still think he should have done better for Bruno Fernandes's goal, if I'm being honest with you. But he'd come in and he'd made an impact. He'd shown that, Robin Olsen had shown that he can play in Premier League games of football. He'd not just come in to give Jordan a rest and he'd been absolutely dreadful. He'd shown that, okay, he might be as good as Jordan Pickford, but he can certainly come in and do a job if need be. And to be honest, he's been needed at times this season, hasn't he, when Jordan's been injured as well. There was a period where Jordan was out for 3 or 4 weeks, I think, with a bruised rib or a bruised side, and Robin Olsen had to come in the team and had to take Jordan's place. So, for me, I think that's a massive compliment you can give to Robin Olsen, as well as the fact that I think he's put in decent performances since he's been at Everton, if I'm being honest with you. I think he's done okay. Would I like to see him sign in the summer? I wouldn't be totally against it, to be honest with you. I wouldn't. He's probably going to cost around £5-6 million. Again, we need a new goalkeeper in the summer anyway to provide backup for Jordan Pickford. There's been a lot of rumours recently around Sergio Romero from Manchester United. He'll actually be a free agent in the summer, so maybe he's a name on the list as well. But I think if Robin Olsen is happy to join Everton, I think Carlo Ancelotti would prefer to go with Robin Olsen, purely because he's he's settled at the football club, and he's settled at the football club, and he's played the season here and he knows the players and he knows the staff. But like I said, I think Robin's had a decent season. He's not been exceptional, but the games in which he's played, more often than not, he's put in good performances. So he is getting a 6.5. Onto the back line then. I'm not going to talk so in depth about every single player, because I realise we'll be here for about 14 years doing that, so there will be some players that I just skip through quite easily, but Mason Holgate's next. I've given him a 5 this season. Quite a disappointing season for Mason Holgate, isn't it, really? Let's be honest. Mason was brilliant last season. It was, even shouts flowing about, and I probably said it as well, that he was our best centre half. He really was. He was brilliant. He'd come in, and I remember when he got injured, I think in the when we returned from football, when football returned, and we had to bring in Jared Brandwaite, and we were all sitting here saying, oh my god, Mason's our best centre half. How are we ever going to do without Mason? Unfortunately for Mason Holgate, he hasn't progressed at all this season. He really hasn't. He struggled. He struggled for any consistency. He struggled for any form. And although he's had good performances here and here out, he's good in the Merseyside derby against Liverpool. He's performed well in various other games as well. The majority of the season, it has been unfortunately tainted with silly individual mistakes and let's be honest, just performances that aren't good enough whatsoever. And I feel for Mason, because he's still very young and he's got a lot of potential, Mason Holgate, and he could go on to be a very good, very solid centre-back. But I just question whether he could go on and be a very good, very solid centre-back for Everton Football Club. If I'm being honest with you, I think that is probably going to be at another football club. I think if Everton get a decent bid this season, this summer, we'll move Mason on, and that's probably the right choice as well, to be honest, because in my view we need the new centre half desperately. We really do need the new centre half desperately, and Mason ultimately, again, if we bring in another centre half, you've got the new player, you've got Keane, Mina, Godfrey, Mason Holgate becomes number 5, and if you can get 15-20 million, which I honestly think we could do, for your 5th choice centre back, you're probably better selling him, to make some money back, certainly if your idea is to keep Yerry Mina, which of course we don't know what the club's views are on that yet. So again, Mason for me has had a disappointing season. He was brilliant last season, and unfortunately he hasn't been able to make up on that. Like I said, he's had some good performances, but he's been inconsistent, to be honest with you. He's been inconsistent, and unfortunately this season certainly Everton, couldn't afford to have inconsistent players, can we? Let's be honest with you, we needed a lot more consistency. Mason has been quite versatile this season, to be fair to him. He's played in a number of different positions. He's played centre-back, he's played right-back, he's also played centre midfield as well. So, to be fair to him, when he's been asked to play in maybe a position that's not natural to himself. He's done it, and he's done it without really moaning. He's done it without really having any sort of issue with it. But for me, you only have to look at the game against Manchester City. He was massively exposed at right back. He looks alright in centre midfield. I'd actually rather Mason Holgate be a centre midfielder, if I'm being perfectly honest, because I think he's very clumsy and he makes a lot of silly mistakes, whereas if he's in the centre of midfield and he's making those mistakes, they're not quite as detrimental to the game as they are if he's making them on the edge of his own box. But again, like I said, overall, it's been a disappointment for Mason Holgate, hasn't it? I think we could all agree with that one. On to Michael Keane then. I'm going to give Michael Keane a 6 for the season. Again, really difficult to judge Michael Keane's season because one game, 1 week, he could come out, he could roll out on the Thursday, as he's done this week, actually. This week's a perfect example. Come out on Thursday against Wolves and was absolutely unbelievable. Best centre-back performance Michael Keane's put in an Everton shirt in a long time. He was brilliant. He dealt with everything, whether it be in the air, whether it be on the floor, whether it be sliding challenges. He was commanding. His positioning was perfect. He was everywhere. He was battling. He was absolutely brilliant. I think I give him a 10 out of 10 performance on Thursday. And then you fast forward just 3 days and he comes up against Manchester City. And look, I know it's Manchester City and I know they're absolutely brilliant and I know that they've got the best players in the world, blah, blah, blah. But it's just the simple things that he's getting wrong, from dribbling the ball into the midfield and trying to take on 3 or 4 Manchester City midfielders when he could have passed it out, or he could have turned around and passed it back when he realised he was in trouble, and then obviously that consequently causing us to go down by 2 goals within the first 10 minutes. Even Sergio Aguero's goal, leaving a 5'8", 5'9" fella to score a free header in the box with 10 minutes to go is just really poor defending. And like I said, I take into consideration the difficulty of playing a team like Manchester City and how good Manchester City are. They are absolutely exceptional. They're the best team in the world. But I still expect more from a player like Michael Keane. He's 26, 27 years old now. He really should be able to add that consistency to his game. We shouldn't be looking at a Michael Keane who is 1 week putting in a brilliant performance and the next week putting in a bang average performance, and I think that's what we've seen. 28 years old, he is 30 in January. 29 in January. Bad maths that. 29 in January. So look, again, Michael Keane's another one of those players that, for me, as a confidence player, and there's always a big question looming around those types of players as to that, can you have a squad full of confidence players? I don't think you can, because I think if you've got a squad full of confidence players, you're always going to be inconsistent. You'll get 1 week where you're brilliant and the next week you'll be dreadful, the next week you'll be poor, the week after that you might be good, but you'll never finish anywhere near the European places with a team full of players that purely play based off of their confidence. And again, like I said, it's mad because Michael Keane started the season really positively. In the first 7-8 games or so, it was him and Yerry Mina as the centre-back partnership. I remember it well. It was Coleman right back, Dean left back, Mina and Keane at centre-back, and they were absolutely excellent. Nothing got through them. I remember the Spurs game, the defence was perfect. It was absolutely brilliant, and like every other centre-back at the football club, I think Michael Keane performs an awful lot better with Yerry Mina next to him. I really do. I think Michael Keane's a much more comfortable defender than what he is without Yerry Mina there, and I think Michael Keane performs an awful lot better when Yerry Mina is next to him. But I just think he's had another sort of iffy season, really, hasn't he? He's had another season where you look and you think, yeah, you've been okay, but for where we want to be, for where this club sees itself, i.e. Champions League, European challenging, is Michael Keane good enough for that? I don't know. Is Michael Keane not good enough? Is Michael Keane consistent enough for that? Because we all know on his day, Michael Keane's more than good enough to be a defender that's playing in a Champions League challenging team. Of course he is. Michael Keane is a very good defender. On his day, a very good defender. But off his day, he's also an absolute liability. And unfortunately, that inconsistency, I think, has harmed Michael Keane this season. Maybe you might think I'm being harsh, and you might think that he's had a better season than what I'm describing. But I just think he's had a lot of inconsistencies this season, and we can't really afford that, can we? We can't. And if Everton are in the market for a centre back this summer, and the decision and the decision is to keep Yerry Mina and give him a new contract, because we all know Yerry Mina is our best centre-back, then I fear for Michael Keane's Everton future. I do. If you're enjoying, by the way, please do hit that like button. It only takes a second. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. If you could share the stream, it would mean a great deal to me. On to Luca Dean now at left back. I've given him a 7. Not as great as the seasons for Everton Football Club. No goals this season for Luca Dean. He has got a plethora of assists, of course. He's up there with the highest assisters in the Premier League, and certainly up there for the highest assisters of defenders in the Premier League as well. I think Luca Dean's had a good season. I think he's had a solid season. I don't think he's had as good of a season as he has had in the previous seasons. I think there's been games this season where he struggled. Obviously, he spent 2 or 3 months out injured as well, which is something that you'd have to take into major consideration. You know, this is Luca Dean's a player who statistically certainly is forward. Stats this season have been absolutely excellent, and like I said, he spent a big chunk of this season out injured, so you do have to take that into consideration, of course. But I think, like I said, I think he's just had a decent season, Luca Dean. He hasn't been absolutely unbelievable, he hasn't been dreadful. For the most part, in most games he turns up and he puts in a 7 out of 10 performance. He's solid. Defensively, look, could he improve? Yeah, probably, but we all know that Luca Dean isn't really there for his... he is there for his defensive duties, obviously, because he's a left-back, but, you know, he's more of an attacking left-back, isn't he? Let's be honest, he's more of an attacking full-back. He's there for the quality that he brings at the other end, and his crosses into the box this season at times have been very good. He also has struggled in not having a consistent partner on that left-hand side. Let's be honest, who's he had there, you know, for the majority of the season? Richarlison's played up front with Dom. Bernard hasn't really been there. Alex Iwobi can't play, you know, on the left. So I think Luca Dean has struggled in not having a consistent partner on that left-hand side. However, I think for the majority of the season, like I said, he's put in these decent performances, hasn't he? Let's be honest. And you know, you might disagree, you might think he's been poor this season, but I think he's been okay. So Luca Dean is getting a 7. Yerry Mina is getting an 8. Listen, I think Yerry Mina has been absolutely brilliant for me this season when he's played. I think he's been so solid. He's demanding, he's physical, he's big, he battles, he gets in, he's not afraid to get into the physical sort of elements of the game with the opposition. And listen, there's a decision to be made on Yerry Mina now. There really is. There's a decision to be made on Yerry Mina as to whether or not the club want to give him a new contract, as to whether or not the club want to, you know, ultimately want to take that risk on him, because he is 26, 27 years old now. He's having, you know, he's had a lot of injury issues since he's joined Everton Football Club. Even now, recently, look at it. You know, he played on Thursday and was very solid, and Carlo come out on Friday and said, on Wednesday played, and Carlo come out on Friday and said, yeah, he'll be, you know, everyone's fit other than James and Seamus Coleman. Everyone's fit for Sunday's game against Man City. Fast forward to Sunday, and Yerry Mina isn't in the squad whatsoever. He's not fit. So again, I think Yerry's had injury issues, massive injury issues this season, as he has had throughout his entire Everton career, and ultimately that is maybe something that will hinder him. But as a defender, as a centre-back, when he's on the pitch, when he's performing, like I said, for me, he's our best. He's our best centre-back. He really is. He's so solid. He's a ball magnet. He gets to everything, whether it be in the air, whether it be on the floor. He defends absolutely everything. And he's so solid at doing it as well. So Yerry Mina is getting an 8 for the entire season. Let me know your player ratings, by the way, in the comments. We will get in the comments shortly. By the way, I'm not just ignoring them. We will dive into them in a little bit. If you're enjoying the stream, by the way, so far, please do hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you are new as well. Only takes a second. Next up on the list is Niels Nkunku. I've given him a 4.5. Again, not because when he's played he's been dreadful and he hasn't warranted a higher score, but same situation to João Virginia. I'm not going to sit here and give Niels Nkunku a 7 for the entire season when he's played about 5 times. Obviously, we've seen him a lot early on in the season, in the early cup games, the Carabao Cup games, the FA Cup games. He played against Fleetwood, he played against Salford, and he played against West Ham as well, in that game where Dom scored a hat-trick. I think he also played against Sheffield Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I am mistaken. And look, you know, he's done really well when he's been in the side, and I've got no issue with Niels Nkunku whatsoever. The only issue I have about Niles Nkunku isn't necessarily with Niles Nkunku, it's more with Carlo Ancelotti and why we haven't seen Nkunku a lot more this season. Not necessarily in terms of starting games of football or being a left back, just in terms of coming off the bench with 15 minutes to go when we're losing, to Aston Villa, or when we're losing to Fulham, or when we're losing to Burnley. Why not bring Niles Nkunku on and let him have a little bit of a run round? What's the worst that can happen? He's going to do more than Andre Gomez is. He's going to do more than Fabian Delph will. So why not throw him on? Why not give him an opportunity? Why not let him run round and see what he can do? But ultimately, that's not the player's fault. That's a decision that the manager makes, and that's a decision that obviously we all have to accept from the manager as well. But in regards to Nkunku himself, like I said, I'm going to give him a 4.5. He hasn't had a lot of game time this season. You might think that's a little bit harsh, but for the lad that's played 5-6 games, you can't really sit here and say, oh, he's getting an 8, he's getting a 7, because that would, again, it doesn't really make much sense. So look, I've been impressed with him when he's been on the pitch. He's provided an energy, he's provided a sort of a youthfulness that we haven't had from anybody else this season, but he just hasn't had a lot of opportunities, has he? And granted, that's not completely his fault, but ultimately it still means that it's difficult to give him a decent mark, isn't it? Ben Godfrey then, Ben's getting a 9. Ben Godfrey has been my, again, little bit of a spoiler, but my signing of the season. He arguably has been player of the season. A lot of people will give him player of the season. He's certainly been young player of the season. Ben has been phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal, barring 1 or 2 bad performances, or 1 or 2 performances where he seemed a little bit out of his depth, the Manchester City game being one of those, which again I don't particularly blame him for, because he's coming up against the best team in world football. But barring, like I said, the odd 1 or 2 performances where he struggled, Ben has been absolutely phenomenal for the entire season, putting in 8, 9, 10 out of 10 performances every single week. And I said it a couple of weeks ago on the player ratings, actually. Kev says a 9. Some people might give Ben Godfrey a 10. I'm a bit reluctant to give anybody a 10 because we've finished 10th and it hasn't been a great season. But Ben is getting a 9. Ultimately, like I said, I said it early on in the season on one of the player ratings, even when Everton performed bad defensively, even when Everton struggled defensively, you always look at Ben Godfrey and think, well, he's been excellent. You can look at Mina and Keane and Holgate and Coleman and whatever and say, oh, they've had a shocking game, they're only getting 6s, they're only getting 7s, but you always look at Ben Godfrey and think, actually, Ben's been absolutely phenomenal today, so he's getting an 8, he's getting a 9, he's getting a 10. He's been an exceptional signing this season, Ben Godfrey. He really, really has. I mean, for a young lad that come in, 22 years of age, from a relegated Norwich side, I don't think any of us really had big expectations for him. But he's been phenomenal, and we need more Ben Godfreys. We really, really need more Ben Godfreys. Young, physical, versatile, mobile players that have got the right mentality, that want to win, that want to succeed for Everton Football Club, that want to go out and battle, give it 110%, work hard, fight for the badge, fight for the club, fight for us fans. We need more of that, and that's exactly what Ben Godfrey is. And when you add that, like I said, that mentality to a big, strong, physical centre-back who can run with the ball. He's faster than, for me, any Everton player at the club. His acceleration is absolutely unbelievable. When he turns those burners on, he's gone, and nobody's catching up to him. Absolutely nobody, whether it be a teammate or an opposition player. And he's been phenomenal this season. I can't praise Ben Godfrey enough for how good he's been. I really, really can't, because he's been fantastic, and ultimately he's had a massive impact on this season, and he's also provided a versatility that was desperate for Carlo Ancelotti. I think if you were to ask Carlo Ancelotti who his best player of the season has been, or who his favoured player of the season has been, he'd probably say Ben Godfrey, because Ben has provided that versatility that we desperately needed when Luca Dean got injured. When it was clear that he was gonna need surgery and he was gonna spend 3 or 4 months out. I don't think Carlo Ancelotti was very keen on giving Niles Nkunku the position at left back for that period of time, so he really, really needed to find an alternative, and that alternative ultimately was Ben Godfrey stepping in, and whilst being a centre-back, whilst playing, his football for Shrewsbury at defensive midfield, whilst playing at right back at sometimes for Norwich, he just stepped in and went, yeah, I'll do it. I'll play left back if you need me to play left back. if you want me to, if you want me to fill in there, I'll do it, and I'll do it really, really well for however long you need me to do it for. And he's done it, and he's done it really, really, really well. And for me, I think Ben's been exceptional this season. So Ben Godfrey is getting a 9. On to captain Seamus Coleman. I'm going to give Seamus a 7. I think one thing you can never sort of disagree with when it comes to Seamus Coleman, and one thing you can never sort of take away from him, is that he works exceptionally hard when he's on that pitch. He battles, he fights, he gets involved. I love Seamus Coleman, and he's an Everton legend. Do I question whether he's a real proper leader? I do. But he gives it 110% every time he's on the pitch for Everton. Obviously, he's played an awful lot this season, probably a lot more than what he would have liked, and in doing that, he's had some performances where he's been absolutely dreadful, and he's had some performances where he's looked massively tired because of having to play so many games. But overall, like I said, certainly recently he's been very, very good. Again, his performances had been solid enough. He'd got involved, he'd worked hard, he'd helped us out, he'd battled in the midfield, he'd thrown the challenges in, Seamus Coleman's one of those players that, if he plays, it's going to go one or two ways. We either win and he plays really, really well, or we lose and he plays really, really poorly. And that's it's the sort of Michael Keane argument, isn't it, at the moment with Seamus Coleman? And he's not always been like that, don't get me wrong. Seamus has been in Ben Godfrey's position at one time where he was absolutely excellent no matter what the result was. But Seamus is now in that sort of same bracket as Michael Keane, whereas that one week he can be absolutely amazing and be the best player on the pitch and be brilliant, and the next week he can be really, really poor and really struggle. And we can't afford to have players that are like that in the team, unfortunately. No matter how sentimental it is, no matter how nice of a player they are, we can't afford to have that type of inconsistency at this football club if we want to be anything more than a mid-table Premier League team. If we're happy finishing 10th and having a little fight for Europe at the end of the season, then yeah, we can afford to have these types of players. But if we genuinely want to play in the Champions League, if we genuinely want to fight for titles, want to fight for European places, then we need more consistent players. And look, we know that this is probably, and hopefully, and this is no disrespect or nothing against Seamus Coleman, but hopefully this is the last time we see Seamus Coleman as a consistent starter forever. And I'm not saying I want him to leave by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not saying I want him to go at the end of the season, well now, but what I'm saying is hopefully going into next season, if you're enjoying, by the way, please do hit that like button. It only takes a second. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to share the live stream. But like I said, going into next season, hopefully we've got another right back, be it Max Aarons, be it Ridley Baku, be it somebody else. Hopefully we've got somebody else to step in and be able to play, 35, 36 games in the Premier League season. Seamus only needs to come in as and when needed, really, because we all know that's what needs happening. But in terms of his performances this season, like I said, I'll give Seamus a 7. He's worked hard, he's battled. We know what we get from Seamus. We know sometimes he'll put in an awful performance. We know other times he'll put in a really, really solid performance. But, like I said, he's getting a 7. Same as Luca Dean, no goals. Nowhere near as many assists as Luca Dean, so maybe Luca Dean should get a 7.5. I've been thinking about it. But, Seamus is still ultimately... Seamus is still ultimately... again, he's battled, he's worked hard, and he's... he's performed well, so he's getting a 7. On to Thierry Small then. Again, some people might say, Cam, you're wasting your breath, but Thierry Small's getting a 4. Obviously come on for 15 minutes in the game against Sheffield Wednesday in the Cup. Youngest ever Everton player to make an appearance, by the way, this season. Not this season, of all time. He done alright. He touched the ball about 2 times. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about Thierry Small. He's a fantastic young prospect, and he is certainly, a player for the future, and a player that could be absolutely phenomenal in the future as well. But as for this season, and as for the moment, again, he's played 1 game. Alan then into the midfield. I think that's the last of the defenders. If I've missed anyone, please do let me know. But Alan into the midfield. I'm going to give Alan a 7.5 this season. Again, he's fell victim to a bad injury in the middle of the season, which has kept him out for 2 or 3 months. When you have a hamstring injury and you're 29, 30 years old, you know it's a big injury to have at that age. It's a big injury to recover from at that age as well. But Alan is, for me, has had a decent season this season. I think one thing that's let Alan down in recent weeks is his lack of pace, his lack of energy, but I don't particularly blame him for that, because we knew when we brought him in that he wasn't a player with an awful lot of pace, he wasn't a player with an awful lot of energy. We knew when we brought him in that Alan would be absolutely phenomenal if you put legs around him, and that was the sole reason as to why we brought in Abdoulaye Doucouré. But the reality of the situation is that we probably need another player next to Alan and Abdoulaye Doucouré to really get the best out of him. He started the season phenomenally well, of course. Absolutely brilliant in this debut game against Tottenham. He battled, he worked hard, he was a proper midfield maestro, and then he was very good for the next 2, 3, 4 games after that. But, you know, unfortunately, like I said, you know, he played an awful lot of football in an awful short period of time, and it ended up having a massive effect on him fitness-wise. It ended up having a massive effect on him in terms of his, you know, his injury situation, and he ended up picking up what was quite a detrimental injury, spending, again, a couple of months out with what was a hamstring injury, and then he returned from his injury, and for me, he really struggled for 2, 3, 4 games to get back to that match fitness. He even come out and done an interview and said, you know, it's so difficult when you're returning from an injury to get back to that state of playing games of football, to get back to that match fitness, not only physically but mentally as well. It's really difficult to get back there. And, you know, and obviously he had the game against West Ham where he was absolutely phenomenal, and it was like watching the Alan that we all sort of know and love, and he was absolutely brilliant in that game. And then, of course, we had the Wolves game he done well in, and the City game he was poor, but so was everybody. Like I said, I like Alan. I think on the ball he's a very good footballer. He's got quick feet, he moves the ball well, he can pass it, he battles, he wins the ball back. I think we've relied an awful lot on Alan having more pace and more energy than he necessarily has. I think we relied an awful lot on that when Doucouré went out injured, and therefore ultimately, you know, that I think was what forced Alan into, well, not forced Alan, but I think that was what made Alan struggle really, is that when you bring in a centre midfielder and you say, right, okay, you're absolutely excellent on the ball, but you're probably not, you haven't got that much energy, you haven't got that much pace. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in another centre midfielder that can sort of sit alongside you, that can provide that energy and that can provide that pace. And then that midfielder that sits alongside them picks up an injury and is going to spend 8 to 10 to 12 weeks out injured. And all of a sudden, your midfielder with not a lot of pace has to fill that void. And he just couldn't do that. You know, we saw when Alan was injured, Abdoulaye Doucouré had to fill his sort of void and had to do his job, and he couldn't do it very well because, you know, he's not as good of a passer of the ball as Alan is. He's not got as good of close ball control as Alan has. And then we saw when Doucouré got injured that, you know, Alan was asked to do his role and he couldn't do it because he's not quick enough, he's not energetic enough. But like I said, individually as a performer, I think when he's played, he's done well. He's got forward, he's got quick feet, he's battled, he's worked hard, and yeah, ultimately he's had a decent season, so he's getting a 7.5. He's certainly come in and improved Everton. He's come in and offered us something that we desperately needed, but now we just need younger, more energetic legs around him to help get the best out of Alan, because I don't think we're getting the best out of him at the moment. If you're enjoying, by the way, please do hit that like button. Only takes a second. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe. We will get into the live comments, by the way. We'll do the midfielders and then we'll dive straight in to the comments. So if you are watching live, get your thoughts in, get your comments in, get your ratings in as well on the entire squad. I'd be interested to hear what you all think. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe. If you could share the stream. We have just hit 3,900 subscribers, by the way, so a massive thank you to everybody who has subscribed. I really do appreciate it. It means a massive amount to me. We're really on that road to 4,000 now, only 95, 96 off of 4,000 now. So if you have subscribed, big thanks. If you haven't, please do so. If you know anybody, friends, family, mates, anybody that you think would enjoy the channel, that you think would enjoy coming along and talking, then please do share the channel and get them involved. It would mean a great deal to me. I've just seen who the next name is on the sheet, and I'm just going to tick them off and briefly go past them. Next is Fabian Delph. Fabian Delph's getting a 2. let's be perfectly honest, there's absolutely no need for us to sit here and talk about Fabian Delph whatsoever. He's made the odd appearance off the bench this season. I think he started the first game that after Luca Dean picked up an injury at left back, and I can't remember who it was against. It might have been against Wolves away, was it? But he started the first game in which Luca Dean had picked up an injury at left back, and we were all sort of thinking, oh my god, there's not a chance Fabian Delph's going to be our left back now for the next 2 or 3 months until Luca Dean, returns to fitness. He then, within 5 minutes of starting, made one run, not even a run with the ball, just one run off the ball, done his hamstring in, and then spent 7 months or whatever it was on the physio table. And then Ben Godfrey obviously come in and slotted in at left back and done a fantastic job. So Fabian Delph's getting a 2, and you might even say that's better than what he should have. In fact, no, I've given somebody else a 1 because of similar reasons. So Fabian Delph's getting a 1 as well, because he's done nothing. He's done absolutely nothing this season to warrant any higher than that. On to Gylfi Sigurdsson then. This might be a player that splits opinions. I've given Gylfi a 7 out of 10 for this season. I think he's got 9 goals, I think. Obviously, a lot of them have been penalties. And he's had a decent season. Again, Gylfi is a player that splits opinion and will always split opinion when we're talking about Everton. And I think a lot of people are still sort of inundated on the fact that, we come in and, he costs so much money, £50 million, and he's not worth it, he's not worth this, he's not worth that. But 8 goals and 10 assists he's had this season in 44 appearances, so not great, don't get me wrong. 86% pass completion, 52% shot and accuracy, 33 successful long passes, 989 successful short passes, 42% of his tackles won, 21 successful dribbling. So when you look at those stats, he's not actually had the worst season ever. 8 goals and 10 assists in a season, again, it's not great, but when you compare it to anybody else, when you compare it to Alex Iwobi, when you compare it to Tom Davis, when you compare it to Alan and Decore, it's very, very good. So it would be harsh of me to sit here and go, Gylfi's awful, he's had a dreadful season, blah, 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 get rid of him. Do I want Gylfi Sigurdsson to still be an Everton player next season? Look, probably not. Not because I don't think he's had a good season, but I think because he's at that age now where if Everton are to offer him a new contract, he's getting paid another £150,000 a week when realistically we could move him on and spend that money elsewhere and shake his hand and say thanks for your time. I actually don't mind Gylfi Sigurdsson. As a surprise to what a lot of you, it'll be a surprise to a lot of you, but I don't mind Gylfi Sigurdsson. I think Gylfi's had 4 seasons at Everton now. The first one he come in and he was played at left wing by Ronald Koeman, and we all know Gylfi Sigurdsson never has been and never ever will be a left winger. He also had a massive injury in that season which kept him out. He was playing really well with Wayne Rooney, and then he had a massive injury which kept him out, and he didn't end up playing for the rest of that season. He then come in for Marco Silva's first season and was absolutely excellent. I remember him scoring that goal against Leicester. He was brilliant. He scored, I think, 10, 12 goals, something like that in that season. He was arguably our player of the year. He then obviously had the season before the one just gone, where again he struggled massively, but I think a lot of that was down to being played as a central midfielder rather than a number 10 or rather than as an attacker, and he's not a central midfielder. He can't defend to save his life. And then this season he's come in and again he's played in various different positions, whether it be centre midfielder, number 10, off the striker, false 9, etc. And again, like I said, 8 goals, 10 assists. Yes, a lot of them have been penalties, and yes, we could have done with them scoring what was arguably the most important one. Maybe the Merseyside derby was the most important one actually, but certainly one of the most important ones on Sunday against Man City, and he didn't. But I think he's done all right, so he's getting a 7. Like I said, there have been a lot of average performances by Gylfi Sigurdsson that take his mark down. There's been a lot of performances where you just look at him and you think, what have you done today? Like, what have you done, in this game at all to affect it? But there's also been a lot of performances where he's come alive, he's worked hard, he's battled, and he's scored some really important goals. And I remember the one against Tottenham a couple of weeks back at Goodison was an excellent finish, cuts across his body and he finishes it absolutely perfectly. He scored the penalty at Anfield, which obviously was a massive moment for us. He scored the penalty against Chelsea at Goodison, which was a big moment as well. And again, 3 assists in the cup against Tottenham, in the FA Cup against Tottenham. I just think he's had a good season, Gylfi Sigurdsson, this season. You might disagree with me. You might say, oh my God, I don't like him. He's not good. He's this, that and the other. And Superstato's probably there now, absolutely loving this up. He's just got the baby oil out there, Superstato. But ultimately, look, again, has he been unbelievable? No. But has he been anywhere near as bad as some of these players have been? Absolutely not either. Would I want him to stay at Everton for the long term? No, because I think it's time to shake his hand and say thanks for your service. We're going to move you on now. You're on far too much money. You're on far too big of a contract to keep you here for what you're given. But I think it would be silly of us to just sit here and say, oh my God, he's been absolutely awful, when in reality he's had an okay season, hasn't he? He's had an okay season, Gylfi Sigurdsson, so he is getting a 7. Abdoulaye Doucouré then, I've given him a 7 as well. Again, I really like Abdoulaye Doucouré. I think he's exactly what we need, and I think it was proven, obviously, when he was out injured for that period of time a few weeks back, that we miss him so much. We desperately miss him. Does he need to improve? Absolutely. I think this is a lad who, for as good as he is in terms of his work rate and his mentality and getting about the pitch and working hard and battling and throwing tackles in, I think his general play in terms of his passing needs to improve massively. I think he struggled on a number of occasions to just pass a simple ball this season, which isn't really good enough, let's be honest. But like you said, you can't really afford to be too picky when you're talking about Abdoulaye Doucouré, because ultimately his energy and his intensity and his constant work rate of getting about the pitch and covering every single sort of section on the pitch is something that nobody else has at this football club. Nobody brings what Abdoulaye Doucouré brings. Nobody brings that energy. Nobody brings that, that intensity and to get about the pitch. So ultimately, beggars can't be choosers. Really, I like Doucouré, and I think he's had a good season. And I also like his attitude. I think he's a player who will go away in the summer and will work on his passing, will work on his, ability in front of goal, will work on his being able to battle. I think what we all thought when we were signing Abdoulaye Doucouré was we were getting a box-to-box midfielder who picked the ball up from midfield and just bulldoze his way forward and get forward, and he hasn't really done that an awful lot this season. He hasn't, and that's what we want to see more of from Abdoulaye Doucouré. We want to see more of that type of player that will just bulldoze his way forward and take 3 or 4 men on and pass the ball off, or have a shot from outside the box and curl it into the back of the net. And I think he could be that player, but he hasn't been that player this season. He's been very good. He's been very important to us. He has been very important to us. Arguably our most important player, because when he's not in that midfield, we're absolutely atrocious. We've got no mobility, no energy, no movement whatsoever when he's not in that midfield. But I just think he could have been a little bit better, certainly in terms of his passing, in terms of his movements, in terms of his just ability on the ball generally. I think there's been a couple of times where we've had the ball and he's given away possession far too easily, when there was a simple pass on. So Abdoulaye Doucouré is getting a 7. Alex Iwobi, I'm going to give him a 3. Again, let's be honest with ourselves. 1 goal this season was against Wolves. Great finish, to be fair, and he was great in that game. He was really, really good in that game. Probably the only really good performance Alex Iwobi's put in. He's had spells where he's come off the bench and he's looked promising and he's looked menacing. And there's an element of me that feels a little bit sorry for Alex Iwobi, because there has been times when he's come off the bench and, I might sit here, or we might all sit here in reviews and say, oh, he done nothing off the bench. He didn't have an impact whatsoever. But when you actually watch the game back, or when you actually watch his performance back, he's coming on and he's trying to create and he's trying to make stuff happen and he's trying to give the ball out to, be it Dom or Charlison or James or Sigurdsson, and it just isn't happening whatsoever. But you can see he's got those ideas. But let's be honest, the reality of the situation is for the amount of money that Alex Iwobi cost Everton Football Club, he's been a resounding disappointment again this season. He really, really has. And if we could recoup some money back from him and we got anywhere near a decent bid this season, this summer, then I'd sell him tomorrow. I really, really would sell him tomorrow. I like him, and I think he's got a future at a club, and I think he could be a good player at a club, but just not Everton Football Club. I just don't think he's suited to this club or this style whatsoever. For example, where's his natural position? Where does he actually play? Where does he want to play? Is he a number 10? Is he a winger? Is he a false 9? Is he off the striker? Is he a midfielder? He can dribble. He can move the ball forward. I just think, and again, I don't want to sit here and be mean or be nasty or whatever, but I just don't think Alex Iwobi is intelligent enough to match what he can do physically. I think he's a good footballer. He's got good feet. He can dribble. He can move the ball forward. He's relatively quick, but I just don't think he's got the up here. I don't think he's got it up here to play and to move where he needs to move and to find himself in the right areas and to get the shots off and to, and ultimately his final ball's really poor as well. So yeah, listen, for the odd one or two performances, and obviously the expectation that we have of Alex Iwobi, I feel a bit harsh giving him a 3 because I've given Virginia a 4 and he's only played once. You know what? Yeah, I'll give Iwobi a 4. I'll give Iwobi a 4 because he scored against Wolves, and yeah, let's be honest, he hasn't done much else other than that, has he? Andre Gomes, then we will get in the comments in a moment, by the way. I'll finish the midfielders, then we'll get in the comments, and then we'll do the forwards and my Player of the Season awards as well. But Andre Gomes, I've given Andre Gomes a 3. I was giving him a 2, but I've bumped him up for a 3, just because I felt bad, really. Yeah. For me, Andre Gomes is one of those players on the list that if we had anywhere near a decent bid, and by decent I mean £8 to £10 million this summer, I'd be moving Andre Gomes on. I like him. I think he's a decent lad. I think he's probably a dead nice fella. He's probably dead professional. But he's not a good enough footballer for Everton Football Club. Let's just have it right. Like, the bare bones of the Andre Gomes situation is he's not good enough for Everton. He's not quick enough. He's not mobile enough. He's not quick enough with the ball at his feet. He's not good enough in terms of what he produces. And you don't necessarily have to be dead quick or dead mobile or dead, dead fast and pacey. But if you're not that, you need to make up with being an absolutely exceptional footballer. Your passing needs to be absolutely pinpoint. Your shooting needs to be pinpoint. You need to be able to find a player from 50 yards and put it on their toes, without even trying, with your eyes closed effectively. And Andre Gomes can't do any of that. He just can't do any of that. And again, like I said, he's had another really, really disappointing season for me. And ultimately started okay, but again, even when we were playing well, even those first opening 6 or 7 games of the season when we were winning, Andre Gomes was the one player out of that entire 11 that you sort of looked at and went, yeah, if we can improve on him, we've got some team here, we've got some squad going forward for this season. Obviously, that didn't end up being the case because players got injured and Richarlison fell off and this, that and the other, but ultimately, like I said, Andre Gomes isn't good enough. He's not good enough, as a lot of these players aren't, to be fair. A lot of these players, like I said, I'd be open to selling in the summer. Just going through this list now already. Holgate, I'd sell if we taking a bid. Michael Keane, I'd sell if he received a bid. There needs to be a decision made on Yerry Mina in regards to his contract. Into midfield, Delph would go, Sigurdsson would go for me, Iwobi would go, Gomes would go. And that's the majority of players that we've mentioned already. There's only Alan Decore, Godfrey, obviously Coleman, Dean, Mina, Pickford, Olsen's obviously already gone. So again, Andre Gomes for me, not had the greatest of seasons, and again for me will be moved on if we can do in the summer. Next is Jean-Philippe Gbamin. Again, he's getting a 1. Feel very sorry for Jean-Philippe Gbamin, to be honest, but let's be honest, we're doing a player ratings for the entire season. We're marking players on the impact that they've had on Everton Football Club over the course of the last 38 games, and Jean-Philippe Gbamin's come on for 10 minutes against Crystal Palace. Probably was at fault for the goal we conceded as well. I'm not just going to say it was solely him, but he was standing in the midfield, scratching his arse, not marking anybody, and then got injured again. So he spent 90% of the season out injured. He come back, which was brilliant to see, and then he got injured again after that. I feel so sorry for Jean-Philippe Gbamin because it's never nice to see a player get injured, and obviously he doesn't want to be injured. It's not his choice to be injured. He isn't choosing to pick up injury after injury after injury, and he wants to be playing, I'm sure, and he wants to be involved in this Everton team. But ultimately, again, for me, Jean-Philippe Gbamin just needs to rest up now, and hopefully we'll be able to see him at pre-season, and hopefully he'll be a part of the squad next season. But as a player and as an impact on this season, he's getting a 1 because he hasn't had an impact on this season whatsoever. Into Tom Davies then. Tom's getting a 7. I think Tom's had a decent season, if I'm being honest. I really, really do. I think Tom's had a decent season. I think, yes, there's been games in which he struggled. Yes, there's been games in which he hasn't put in as good of a performance as you would have liked. But for the majority of the time that he's been on that pitch, and by the way, I also think Tom's been quite harshly treated this season. I would have liked to have seen a lot more from Tom Davies than what we have. But for the majority of this season. I think Tom, like I said, has put in really, really good, solid, strong performances when he's had to, and when he's being called upon, and I think that that is a very, very positive thing for Tom Davies and for Carlo Ancelotti as well, and therefore for me, like I said, he's getting a 7. The Merseyside derby he was absolutely excellent in. The game against West Ham he was phenomenal as well, and there's been certain times this season where Tom's actually helped Alan at times this season. He's allowed Alan to be able to get forward and do a lot more of his work, further up the pitch. He done it against West Ham. He allowed Alan to push forward and do his work, as sort of a forward-thinking midfielder, and therefore, he wasn't sort of messing about with the ball around his own box and causing us issues. So for me, Tom, like I said, Tom's getting a 7. I think he's had a decent season this season. He's battled, he's worked hard. Every time he's been on that pitch, he's showed fight, he showed that he cares, which is more than we can say for a lot of these players. And ultimately, I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. Not had as great as the seasons, not obviously no goals. I don't think he's had any assists as well. But a decent season nonetheless for Tom Davies. If you're enjoying, by the way, please hit that like button. Only takes a second. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to get your comments in. If you're watching a YouTube video, leave them below. If you're watching as a stream, get them in the comments, live comments, and we will get involved in them. Mike says, morning Cam, morning Mike. Mo Besic is next, and he's got an NA. Because he hasn't played a game for us this season, but he was on the list on Everton's website. So I put him down on my list, but he hasn't kicked the ball for Everton this season, so he's getting an NA, which basically means he can't be marked. Tyler Onyango, then I've given him a 4 as well. I think he's sort of in the same. I don't know actually. I don't know. No, yeah, I'll give him a 4. Sort of the same bracket as Thierry Small, hasn't he? We haven't seen him for more than 5, 10, 15 minutes here and there. He come on in a couple of cup games, hasn't he? But I've really liked the look of Tyler Onyango when he's come on, to be honest with you. He's worked hard, he's battled, he's really showed the promise of what could be a fantastic Everton player going forward. He's big, he's strong, he's physical. He's also shown that he's the most like Abdoulaye Doucouré, the player most like Abdoulaye Doucouré at the whole club, and we could have really done with Tyler Onyango in these last few weeks. Obviously he's picked up a big injury, and we wish him a very speedy recovery, and hopefully he comes back stronger next season, and I think he will. Still only young, of course, but we could have done with a Tyler Onyango in recent weeks, because his physicality, his energy, his pace would have been massively needed recently for Everton. So anyway, he's only featured a couple of times, hasn't he? So he is getting a 5. Right, before we get into the forwards and of course my player of the season, young player of the season, all of that, let's get in the live comments. We've been steaming for an hour and we haven't even touched on the live comments. I do apologise for that. I know I'm absolutely awful, aren't I? Big thanks for watching, by the way. If you're enjoying, leave a like, subscribe if you're new. Getting towards that 4K mark now, so if you could subscribe, it would mean a great deal to me. Daniel says, how many players do you think will buy this summer, Cam? I'm going to go out on a punt and say 5. I'm going to say we'll bring in 5 players. How many of them will physically buy? In as well as like loans, I'm going to say we'll bring in 5 players. We might buy 4 of them and bring in 1 loan. But I'll say 5. Dodgebrook says, hi Cam, thanks for all the content throughout the season. Nice one, mate. Nice one. Really, really do appreciate that. Hope you've enjoyed the content. We're going nowhere. We'll be back tomorrow with the first episode of the season review. We'll then have the second episode on Thursday. And then, of course, we've got loads of content coming up over the next couple of weeks or so. Discussions, transfer videos, recruitment videos with Tom again. We've got loads coming up. There's that donation from Liam. Thank you very much once again, Liam. Really do appreciate that, mate. Saul says, would have given Pig for the 7, need a whole season in his current form. Fair enough, mate. I understand that, and that's exactly that. That's completely fair enough. I just think Jordan has impressed me massively recently and deserves a lot of plaudits. But that's fair enough. I could see it where you're coming from as well. Your rating's probably more fairer, but I've just gone full Jordan Pickford fanboy, to be honest with you. Daniel says, a Sean promise is a real promise. Yeah, where are you now, Sean? Exactly. Daniel says, if you know, you know. Sol says, remember when they wheeled out Van Dijk for the derby? Yeah, they wanted it to be a massive celebration, didn't they, in front of him, and You know, it didn't work, did it? Didn't work. Chris says, morning, mate. Hope you're well. Morning, Chris. I'm doing well, mate. I hope you're doing well yourself. Leanne says, first half of the season DCL, second half of the season Pickford. It's fair enough. It is fair enough. If you were to only pick one, though, Leanne, who would it be? Interesting to hear. Rainbringer says, Gylfi, Iwobi, Delph, Bernard, Gomez, Walcott, Tosun, Holgate, Keane. How many will they get rid of? The answer is 0. Spineless management doesn't matter how many players we get when they get to ruin staff. Well, Walcott's already gone. I think Tosun will go. Bernard will go. Hopefully Delph will go. And like you said, there's decisions to be made on all of the others. I said it in the game review yesterday to the City game. This summer isn't just about bringing in 4 or 5 players and saying, right, we've brought in the right profile of players. That's great. If we bring in 4 or 5 players like the ones that me and Tom mentioned the other day, and Anguissa, Jack Harrison, a Pereira, a Bailey, etc. Brilliant. But it's also about being ruthless with the players that are currently at the football club that aren't good enough and are currently earning 50, 60, 70, 80,000 pounds a week that aren't good enough whatsoever. Player 1 says, just give player of the season to Ben Godfrey. Future Everton and England captain, in my opinion, reminds me of a young Rio Ferdinand. Well, we'll have to wait and see who gets my player of the season shortly. Leanne says it's just the Euros that's kicked them up the arse. Talking about Jordan Pickford, fair enough. Sol says yes, spot on. Cam, more competition for places really isolate those players who are toothless to their core. You're spot on. Kev says Holgate shouldn't be near the first team. Player 1 says Holgate needs to go out on loan, a newly promoted team, in my opinion. How many loans does he need though before we... If we don't get a bid for him, he'll stay, obviously, because you can't just sell players when nobody wants them. But if we get a bid for him, I think we'll sell Mason Holgate. Sol says prefer Mason over Keane, far more flexible, just about his balance in play as well as his concentration. Michael Keane is a typical low block defender. As this team progresses to hopefully more expansive football, he'll struggle, in my opinion. Such a confidence player for his age as well. Can't disagree at all with that, mate. Liam Eugene says Bernard on the move. I don't know. Kev says it's going to be hard to convince players to come to Everton. It really is. Liam says, when are you and Ned onto episode 5 for the career mode, lad? I don't know when it'll be out. I think it'll be out Friday. Episode 5. We've already recorded it, so it should be out this Friday, I believe. I'm going to Toffee TV later on, so I'll speak to Ned, and I'll know tomorrow. So if you join our stream tomorrow morning, Liam, then I'll find out for you. I'll know then. Smig says good players are never inconsistent. There you go. Will says Dean doesn't have anyone in front of him who can trust. That's why I believe he's not himself going forward this season. Fair enough. Eugene says James Rodriguez, Everton future set to be transfer talking point. Fair enough. Smig says inconsistent players just simply aren't good enough. Yeah. Dugout says closing in on 4k. Cam, great work, buddy. Thank you very much, mate. Really appreciate that. Smig says Hammers is quality. Ewan says I think Everton needs to get rid of some of the deadwood. We do. And Sol says Dean always reliable. Exactly the profile of play we need. Players that are on the brink of Champions League football, acting as a springboard if the team fail to reach Europe. Yeah, I agree. And Adamski says if we get rid of the deadwood, there will be no club left. Yeah, well, that's why we have to bring in better players, don't we? We will get back into those live comments shortly. By the way, big thanks to everybody for getting involved. As always, if you are watching live, do give your thoughts in the comments. If you're enjoying as well, please do hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. On to the forwards then. Starting off with Richarlison, 13 goals, 3 assists this season. I've given Richie I don't know. I've written these ratings down now, and as I'm going through, I'm sort of second guessing myself. This is the beauty about doing a player ratings video, is you always sort of, you give a rating for a certain player and then you go to somebody else and you think, hang on, maybe I've given him too low because of what I've given him or what he's done, etc, etc. I'm going to give Richie a 6.5 for his standards. Now, Richarlison's, 13 goals in all competitions this season, with 3 assists. I think, if I'm right in saying, he has scored... How many did he score? He scored against Wolves, didn't he? So I think he scored 7 Premier League goals this season. Again, look, let's not kid ourselves. Richarlison has had a season that we couldn't really have afforded Richarlison to have. Really, he struggled, hasn't he? He struggled to find any consistency. He struggled to get goals. And look, Richarlison has been very, very good for the last 2 or 3 seasons as an Everton player, or 2 seasons as an Everton player. And now he's come into this season, and like I said, he struggled. And effectively, Everton can't afford... Richarlison's had a season where he's scored 50% less goals than what he did last season, certainly in the Premier League. And the reality of the situation is Everton can't afford to lose 50% of some of these goals. We really, really can't, because we've not got goals anywhere else. You look at Richarlison and Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who are the 2 players that we're going to talk about now. Throughout the rest of the squad, Davis, no goals. Gomez, no goals. Iwobi, 1. Doucouré, 2 or 3. Sigurdsson, okay, 8, but most of them are penalties. Allan, no goals. Coleman, none. Dean, none. Mina and Keane, 3 or 4 between them, obviously, with headers and stuff. James has got, 8 and 9, something like that. Bernard, 1. King, none. Moise Keane, obviously, I know he's been on loan for the majority of the season, but he scored, only 1, I think, for the season. So we really, really, really can't have afforded to have Richarlison having a bad season this season, and effectively he has had a bad season, hasn't he? So I get that, we all look and we all sort of think, oh my god, that's not good enough. But for me, again, I think Richarlison has had spells this season when he's been very good. He scored the goal against Liverpool at Anfield, which was fantastic, and obviously historically a massive goal for the club now. He scored against Wolves the other day, which was a really good header and a big goal. And yeah, like I said, he's had spells. He started the season relatively brightly as well. But ultimately, I think it's been a disappointment. I think we could all agree it's been a disappointment for him, and it's been a disappointment for us. But I fully expect Richarlison to bounce back and be, and work on that and be much better in the following season. Certainly next season. I think all of this stuff about sell him and get him gone and move him out, he's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. There's some of Richarlison. Put it this way: if Barcelona were interested last season, they're certainly not interested now. So he isn't going anywhere, and hopefully he he improves and he has a much better season next season than what he's had this season. But I'm gonna give him a 6.5 for his standards. Genuinely, he'd probably still get a 7 and 8 to be honest, because of again his goals, and he scored some important goals. But from his standards and what we expect, he's had a disappointing season, hasn't he? So I'm gonna give him a 6.5. Always works hard though, Richarlison. Always battles, and you might think that's a bit harsh. In fact, no. Do you know what? He's getting a 7.5 because. I'm bumping him up because I've just seen Sigurdsson's got a 7 and Olsen's got a 6.5. He's not getting this. He's getting a 7.5. Again, you expect 8-9s from Richarlison, but he hasn't had that good of a season. But he's still he's still been involved. He still had spells and he still scored some important goals. So 7.5 for Richarlison, final answer. Dominic Calvert-Lewin then. Dom's getting a 9.5 for me. Very, very close to getting a 10. Nobody's getting a 10. Because it hasn't been a 10 out of 10 season for anybody in my opinion. But Dominic Calvert-Lewin, 21 goals, 1 assist, 16 Premier League goals I believe this season. He's been absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal this season. He's battled, he's worked hard, he's scored the goals when he needed to. Yes, he was much better at the start of the season than he has been towards the end of the season, but he still had overall a very, very important season. And I see a lot of people criticising Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I see a lot of people saying, oh my god, he's not good enough, get rid of him, this, that and the other, we need better. If it wasn't for Dominic Calvert-Lewin's goals this season, Everton would be in a relegation battle, and that's pure fact. That's pure fact. He scored some really, really big important goals, and he's also made some really important goals as well. The penalty at Anfield, he made that. The penalty against Chelsea, he made that as well. He should have had a penalty the other week. Can't remember who it was against now, but he should have had a penalty being taken down. Villa, I think it was against. So look, for me, Dom has had an exceptional season. He's come on leaps and bounds from where he was last season, and he's come on even more from where he was 2 seasons ago. 21 goals. I think he's only going to get better next season. I really, really do. I think those Evertonians that are adopting this stance of Dom's not good enough, move him on, I think you'll be surprised next season. I really, really do, because I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin will go into next season and have an even better season as to what he's had this season. And like I said, his work rate, his mentality, his attitude, it's all just absolutely spot on, isn't it? It really, really is. You physically can't criticise Dom for his attitude and for his mentality and for his work rate. And also this season, he's added the goals to that as well. So Dominic Calvert-Lewin, for me, has been phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. From the goal against Tottenham on the opening game of the season to his hat-tricks against West Brom, against West Ham, of course, the goal against Manchester United at Old Trafford in the last dying minutes, even the goal against West Ham the other day, something that we've criticised Dom for an awful lot this season and said he needs to improve on, is that ability in front of goal, that ability one-on-one in front of the goalkeeper. Well, again, he stepped up against West Ham and he slotted it past Fabianski, and I'm not saying that everything's forgotten now and that means he's brilliant and he doesn't need to work on it in the summer. Obviously, he still needs to work on that in the off-season, going into next season, but at least he's showing that he can work on that, and he has worked on that, and he's come back and he's slotted the chance that, let's be honest, we all sort of feared that he wouldn't slot against West Ham. So for me, Dom's been exceptional, absolutely exceptional. And again, I really like Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Some Evertonians don't think he's good enough. Some Evertonians, maybe don't like him as much. But I really, really like Dom. I think he's been brilliant this season. I think he's a brilliant player. I think he's got the right attitude. We talk about Everton players. We talk about players that, there's a lot of players in this squad that you could say are guilty of not really caring about playing for the football club, not really wanting to play for the football club, not really showing interest and being at that stage in their career where they're not really arsed and they just want a final payday, this, that and the other. Dom isn't one of them. Dom is a player that is exactly the profile and the mould of player that should be playing for Everton Football Club. He loves this football club. He's thankful for this football club, and I think he's been absolutely phenomenal this season. So Dom is getting a 9.5. Josh King then, he's getting a 3. Let's be honest. He's probably lucky to get a 3 as well, to be honest. He's not. I feel sorry for Josh King because, let's be honest, what was the point in the Josh King signing? What was the point in the Josh King? He come in January, he come off the bench and he didn't start a game for Everton. He's probably not going to sign a contract, so we're probably never going to see him again in an Everton shirt. He hadn't started the game for us. He come off the bench. I think the longest time he'd played was a 25-minute stint, maybe. Most of the times he'd made appearances were the last 3, 4, 5 minutes of a game off the bench when, let's be honest, he was never going to come on and change it. He had one header cleared off the line with a handball, which he was denied a blatant goal. You can't disagree with that. And other than that, that was really it, wasn't it? I really think, again, I don't want to say it was a panic buy because we didn't spend a lot of money on him, and he come in basically just to fill a space, didn't he? I think he come in to allow Anthony Gordon to go out on loan in January and to just fill that space on the bench. That was all it was. It was never going to be a view for him starting or for him playing consistent football. It was just to fill a space on the bench and to get a little bit of hype going around the club in January when everything was a little bit sort of blasé. So yeah, again, it's very difficult to give Josh King anything more than a 3 because he's done very little, and I'm not particularly blaming that on him. It's very hard to do anything when you're only coming on with 5 or 10 minutes to go at the end of a game, if that. But let's be honest, he's done very little, hasn't he? So Josh King is getting a 3. James Rodriguez then, this might be one that splits opinion. I've given James an 8. 6 goals and 8 assists for Everton this season, and yes, granted, he's spent a lot of time injured, and yes, granted, he also left Liverpool on a plane the day before the game against Manchester City, which quite consequently, I don't blame him. I've supported Everton 22 years, and if you'd have told me that Everton were going to get swatted 5-0, I'd have left the City on a plane as well if I had the option. Listen, the reality of the situation with James Rodriguez, and it's something that we're going to talk about more in depth in the season reviews over the next couple of days or so, is that James is a player that was always going to spend a large part of this season out injured. If James Rodriguez didn't have his injury issues, he wouldn't be at Everton Football Club, and that's the reality of the situation. We can kid ourselves all we like, we can hope all we like, and we can talk about, oh yeah, we're a massive club and we're not a great team. We're not a great team, and in the grand schemes of football at the moment, I don't know what's just happened there, my page has just flipped up. In the grand scheme of football at the moment, we're not an unbelievably massive club. We're a massive club historically, of course we are, but James Rodriguez wouldn't be at Everton if it wasn't for his injury issues, and we knew that when we signed him. We knew that when we signed him in the summer. We knew that when he was wearing the Everton shirt and all of this stuff. We knew, right, okay, we're bringing in a player that when he plays is going to be absolutely exceptional and is going to have a massive involvement, i.e. 6 goals, 8 assists. I think he's played 25, maybe 26 times this season. Let me just get the exact stat up so we all know how many times he's actually played this season. Bear with me just 2 seconds. He has played, he's in the forwards category on the website, don't know why. He's played 26 times this season, so effectively, taking away your cup games, which, again, not really too asked about anyway, he's missed 12 games this season, so he's played 12, 24, 36, so he's played 2/3 of the season. Effectively, he's missed 1/3 of the season, give or take. So for me, that's actually more than what I thought it was. I thought he'd missed. Sorry, that's less than what I thought it was. I thought he'd missed more games than that. So we knew that we were going to get injury issues with James. We knew when he come in that he was going to struggle. We knew when he come in that he was going to spend a lot of time out injured. We knew that. Otherwise, he wouldn't be an Everton player, like I said. when he's come in and when he's played, he's scored some really important goals, and he's done some things that, let's be honest, no other Everton player could do. The goal against Manchester United at Old Trafford, he took it absolutely brilliantly. He took it out the air perfectly, and it was a great finish. The goal against Crystal Palace, he squeezed it into a tight angle that no other Everton player will probably be able to squeeze that ball into. The goal against Leicester, excellent finish on his right foot. The West Brom game, he was creating everything that, you know, I'm going to talk about my goal of the season, and he's massively involved in that goal. Like I said, the Anfield derby plays an excellent ball through to Richarlison that nobody else sees. Richarlison goes on and slots and scores the goal that sets us up to go out and win our first derby in a decade. James this season, whether you like him or not, whether you're happy with him or not for leaving the country a day early, he's had a very, very good season for when he's played. His stats are unbelievable for when he's been on that pitch. And yes, he isn't fit as much as we would like him to be. Yes, he's injured an awful lot more times than what we all want. But that's what you get when you sign a player who's in his late 20s, early 30s, and has had injury issues. We need to understand as a fan base that we aren't a football club that can buy the players of the level of James Rodriguez when they're in their early 20s and they've got no injury issues whatsoever. We either need to not buy those players at all, which I think is the way we need to go now. By the way, I love James, and James has had a great season, but we can't keep buying players in the same category as James in terms of that age and that profile with the injury issues and stuff. But we know that if we're to get a James Rodriguez, we're getting him on the basis that he's going to spend a lot of time out injured, and he's probably going to get preferential treatment because again, if James says, I'm not fit and I don't want to play, Carlo Ancelotti isn't going to play him. And I get that goes against what it's to be an Evertonian and this, that and the other, and you want players to play, and you want players to play through tiredness and through fatigue. But like I said, we all knew what we were getting with James. We all knew we were getting a player that was going to spend a lot of time out injured. We all knew we were getting a player that was going to miss big games, was going to miss games that we don't need, that we don't want him to miss, because that's the player he is. And if he wasn't that player, if he wasn't that injury prone, if he didn't have those issues, he wouldn't be at Everton Football Club. But the reality of the situation is, when you're rating James Rodriguez, and when we talk about his season, put aside his injury issues, put aside whatever personal problems you might have with him for, you know, leaving before the Manchester City game, etc., and just look at his performances when he's been on the pitch. And more times than not, he's created more than any other player. He's either scored goals, or he's assisted, or he's played absolutely unbelievable balls and been involved in goals. He's played unbelievable passes. He's in terms of his ability and his quality, he's a level above anybody else at this football club. And that's the reality of the situation. So James is getting an 8 this season. Again, could he have been better? Yes, because he could have been fitter. But let's be honest, well, could he have been fitter? Because if he was any fitter, he wouldn't be at Everton Football Club. Let's be honest, he'd be playing for somebody in the Champions League. So yeah, James is getting an 8. 6 goals, 8 assists for Everton this season, and a plethora of, and I know people don't like the pre-assist, pre-assist, but for me, pre-assist is brilliant, because we'll talk about pre-assist when I talk about my goal of the season, but I'm happy to talk about pre-assists because I think it's important. I really do. On to Bernard then. Listen, Bernard's getting a 4. Again, scored a couple of goals this season, scored against Manchester United at Goodison Park. Obviously, you know, again, scored against Tottenham in the Cup, which was a great finish to put us through as well. I like Bernard. I think he's a decent player. I think he's a talented footballer. I think he's got good ball control. I think he can shoot, but he's just not physical enough for this league whatsoever. He hasn't got the physicality, and he also hasn't got the burning pace. He's fast, but he hasn't got the burning pace to be able to substitute the lack of physicality. If you're not a big physical player, then you need to have absolutely rapid pace that can substitute that lack of physicality, and Bernard hasn't got either of that. So ultimately that means that for the majority of the season he's left on the bench and he doesn't really play an awful lot. But like I said, I like him. Technically he's a good footballer, he can shoot, he's got skills, he can move the ball, but I don't see him being an Everton player this season, next season, and he hasn't had a massive impact on this season either, so he's getting a 4. And then I've actually given Moise Kean a mark, because why not? He played a couple of games at the start of the season, didn't he? Moise Kean's getting a 4 as well. If you were to ask me to mark him a PSG, then yes, he's probably getting a 7, 8, 9, whatever, but as an Everton player, he hasn't had much of an impact on the club whatsoever, as he went on loan to PSG for the majority of the season, and for the few games that he did play, I think he scored maybe once. I think he scored twice actually in the Carabao Cup against Fleetwood, was it? Scored a penalty, and he scored another goal where Niles Nkunku passed it back to him, didn't he? And he slotted it. But other than that, he hasn't had an impact on this season whatsoever, has he? So Moise Keane is getting a 4. And I think that's everybody. If I've missed anybody, let me know in the live comments. If you're watching the YouTube video, let me know in the YouTube comments, and I'll rate them on another video. But I think that's everybody. Let us know your thoughts on my player ratings for the season. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Is there some players you think should have got higher? Is there some players you think should have got lower? Let us know. Let's get into the live comments then, and then I want to finish up the stream doing my Player of the Season awards, which I was going to do in the Player in the Season review, but I think there's too much to get through in the season review, so we may as well just do it on this one. Eugene says, I think Everton needs to sell Gylfi Sigurdsson in the summer. Well, let's see. Let's wait and see. Let's see if anybody puts a bid in. Kev says a 9, he's a future captain. Talking about Godfrey, I believe. Adam says Godfrey is the hero we need, not the hero we deserve. Yeah. Eugene says Keane update. I don't know what the Keane update is. James Rodriguez says there's only one Everton player who has been good this season, and it's Moise Keane. Everton for you, mate. Mitchell says, unless Gylfi takes a massive pay cut, nobody is going to take him up to half of his wage. It's a good point, mate. It's a really good point. Mick says, James put someone clean through every game. He created more than any other player in that team. That's scary because he can't run or stay fit. That's his extreme quality, and the rest aren't good enough. Fair enough. He also says Spurs got rid of Sigurdsson 8 years ago. Oh, there you go. There you go. Mitchell says, imagine the world-class talent you could bring in for them wages, or the young European talent. You're spot on, mate. You're absolutely spot on. And that's why I'm saying, for me, with Gylfi Sigurdsson, I'd shake his hand. I'd say, thanks for your time. Thanks for your career, your goals, your this, that, and the other. But it's time to move on. It's time for us to progress. Now, Smig says, we want to challenge Champions League places. Let's get with the reality. How many of our players would get in the top 4 teams who qualified? You could even go into the Europa League teams. Not a lot of them, mate, which is why we need to strengthen massively and why we need to get rid of a lot of these players that aren't good enough. Mike says, morning Cam, morning Mike. Andrew says, Carlo will get it right if he's backed by the board. Liverpool was shit when Klopp took over and he turned it round and got the players they needed. Carlo will do the same. Let's hope so, mate. Like you said, he does need to be backed by the board. Mike says, we are a top club that's going through change. We need Carlo and Brands to get this right, and I think they will. Come on, you Blues, it's right. Saul says, considering Everton's style of playing, expected XG for the majority of the season, Dom's goal tally is absolutely superb. You're right. He has had an unbelievable season for me. Unbelievable. Mace says, best channel in Merseyside. Thank you very much, Mace. Really do appreciate that, honestly. It means a lot. And Sol says, Nathan Broadhead. Oh yeah, did I forget Nathan Broadhead? What did he come on for 5 or 10 minutes at the end of a game? Yeah, he's getting a 3. Come on, ran around for a bit, didn't he? I remember him coming on now. Actually, I think he got put through and he had one chance and he missed it. But other than that, didn't really do anything, but he didn't get a bit much of an opportunity, did he? And he is only young, so he can get a 3 as well. Anyway, let's get on to my Player of the Season awards. I'm going to say Player of the Season, Young Player of the Season, Most Improved, Goal of the Season, Sign of the Season, and Game of the Season as well. We'll fly through these because you understand we've been on for an hour and a half now, and I get people are sitting there probably thinking, shut up Cam, you're doing me head in now. Player of the Season for me, it was between two. It was between Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Ben Godfrey, but I've got to give it to Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I just have to give it to Dom. He's been absolutely phenomenal this season, hasn't he? Like we said, 21 goals, 1 assist, as Sol says in the comments, considering our XG, considering the chances that we create, especially when James Rodriguez isn't on the pitch, Dominic Calvert-Lewin's goal tally has been absolutely phenomenal this season. His work rate, his mentality, his passion, his battling is just absolutely brilliant. And like I said, the goals that he scored have single-handedly saved Everton's season. He's been absolutely phenomenal. And like I said, it was between him and Ben Godfrey, but I think Young Player of the Season, we will go on to in a moment. You couldn't not give Dom one of those 2 awards, put it that way, and he's not going to get Young Player of the Year because there's younger players that have been brilliant as well. So for me, Player of the Season, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, no question. I get Ben's in there as well, but you can't overlook Dom. You simply can't overlook Dom for how much he's improved, his goals, his work rate. He's been brilliant. Young Player of the Season then, I've gone with Ben Godfrey. Again, like I said, there's probably only Tom Davies who fits in that category. You could battle with Ben for the award, and as much as I like Tom Davies and as good as I think he's been this season, I think it'd be an absolute travesty if you give Player of the Season to Tom Davies and not Ben Godfrey. Young Player of the Season, sorry. Ben has been brilliant this season. Absolutely brilliant. Like I said, he's come in. There was no real expectation surrounding him. And, you know, he's been much better than I think any of us ever expected. He's done his job at centre-back when he's needed to. He's played in a back five. He's played in a back four. He's played at left-back when he's needed to as well. He's played at right-back at times. He's big. He's physical. He's strong. He's got the right mentality. He works hard. He battles. He throws the challenges in. He's a proper old school centre half, and he's exactly what Everton need. And Everton need, like I said, 4, 5, 6, 7 more Ben Godfreys in this squad in various different positions. He's a good quality defender as well. Can he improve? Obviously he can, but he's still only 22 years of age, so there's a lot of time for him to improve, and there's a lot of you know, like I said, there's a lot of time to work on that as well. So for me, young player of the season, Ben Godfrey, absolutely nailed on. Most improved, I've put in 2 names down. I've gone with Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who was one of them. I think Dom has been massively improved this season, of course. 21 goals is his best goal tally for Everton Football Club. And I think the best thing about Dominic Calvert-Lewin is you'll probably see him improved again next season. You'll probably see an even better Dominic Calvert-Lewin in the 2021-22 season. But I've actually gone with Jordan Pickford for this one. Look, for me, like we said before, we've seen both sides of Jordan this season. We've seen an inconsistent side of making silly mistakes and costing us goals, and, you know, again, sort of looking like a goalkeeper that hasn't got a future at the club. And then more recently, in the last few months or so, we've seen a side of Jordan Pickford of an absolutely phenomenal goalkeeper who is by far good enough to be Everton's goalkeeper going forward, and has been just absolutely brilliant. Made some, you know, game-winning saves. Again, kept us in games. Like I said, he's matured a lot. His concentration's there, and I'm giving it to Jordan Pickford. I really am. I think, like I said, for me, you can't overlook Jordan's improvements this season. You really can't. And I get that you might say, yeah, but it's over the course of a season, Cam, and Jordan's only been brilliant for the last sort of few months or so. But that is even more reason for me to give him most improved, because he started the season a bit shaky and a bit inconsistent. And again, we started the season where we were all looking, thinking, you know, we need a new goalkeeper. And he's ended the season with us all saying we don't need a goalkeeper. Other than a backup, we don't need a new number one whatsoever, because Jordan's been absolutely phenomenal this season. Recently he's not really put a foot wrong whatsoever. So, for me, Jordan Pickford gets most improved. Goal of the season, it was difficult, this one. I've seen a lot of people, I have seen a lot of people talk about the Richarlison goal in the Merseyside derby, and I get that because of the importance of that goal. A lot of people have picked that, and I understand that. I'm going with Dominic Calvert-Lewin's goal against West Brom. I can't remember which one it was, whether it was the first, second or third. I think it might have been the second. But it was the one where James dinked the ball over to Richarlison. Richarlison made a run through, played the ball across the box, and then Dom tapped it in. And you might say, how was that winning goal of the season, Cam? It's a tap-in for Dominic Calvert-Lewin, but it's not necessarily the finish. It's not necessarily where he scored from. It was the overall play. It was unbelievable football. Like, let's be honest, we haven't seen Everton do that much this season, other than the first few games of the season. When was the last time Everton scored a goal like that, where James has picked the ball up, he's dinked it over, Richarlison's understood the run, made the run, stayed on side, played it across the box, Dom's understood his run and tapped it in at the back post. It was an unbelievably worked goal, and that's what I'm talking about with pre-assists. James Rodriguez didn't get an assist for that goal, but the chipped ball over the top was absolutely phenomenal. It was absolutely brilliant, and for me, that's my goal of the season. Let us know your thoughts on that one, by the way, in the comments, and let us know what goal you believe is goal of the season. But for me, it's that one against West Brom where James chips it over, Richarlison gets on the end of it, crosses it across, and Dom finishes it. I just think it was a perfect team goal, and a goal where you could see the chemistry of those three players, where, you know, we haven't seen an awful lot of that recently, have we? Let's be honest, which is massively disappointing, because it's there somewhere, but they just don't seem to be showing it. Signing of the summer then, signing of the season, I've gone with Ben Godfrey. Look, I think obviously Alan's come in and done a job and had a decent season. Decore's come in and done the same. James has come in and done the same. But I think we'd be silly to overlook the importance of Ben Godfrey. He's been brilliant this season. His versatility, his his performances have been, like I said, 8, 9 out of 10 performances nearly week in, week out. And for me, he's just been phenomenal this season. Absolutely phenomenal. He's 22 years old. He's a player that we can all look forward to seeing much more of in the next coming years. Hopefully, for his sake, he's included in the England squad, which will be announced at 1 p.m. today. So hopefully, he does get in. I think he should do, because he's much better than Connor Cody and Tyrone Mings. He's on another level to those two players. But yeah, for me, signing of the summer, £20 million. I get you might take Hammers on a free because of what he's brought, or you might take Decore because the energy, etc. But for me, Ben Godfrey has just been, he's been a level above in terms of for signings and for players coming in. He's been and what he'll bring for the future. He's been a level above anybody else for me. And then game of the season. Look, this one is easy, isn't it? Let's be honest. We've all got the same answer for this one. It's the Merseyside derby at Anfield. We can all sit here and talk about this season being a disappointment and ending in disappointment and overall being an a frustrating end and a frustrating one, but we'll always have that Merseyside derby winner at Anfield, and that'll, I think, will be everybody's game of the season. I know you might say West Brom because we won 5-2, or West Ham in the cup, but has anybody got a better game, or a game they enjoyed more, or a game that, at the end of it, the were as emotional as that one? I don't know. Let us know. Well, anyway, that is it. That is it for my player ratings for the season, and that is it for my player of the season awards as well. Let me know your thoughts on them in the comments. Massive thanks to everybody for getting involved in the live comments. Really do appreciate it. And if you're watching it as a YouTube video, leave your thoughts in the comment section of the YouTube video, and I will be getting involved with as many of them as possible. I'll be trying to answer as many of them as possible, and I'll be really interested to know who you all think is player of the season, who you all think is goal of the season, and all of that stuff as well. So let me know in the comments section down below. Massive thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this one, please do hit that like button. It only takes a second. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new as well. Flying towards 4,000 subscribers now, so if you could hit that subscribe button, it would mean a great deal to me. Eugene says DCL was my player of the season. Fair enough. Y'all says Pickford or DCL, no other candidates, which is why we're shite. Normally 5 or 6 to choose from. Stuart says, I agree with you on Tom Davies. He's not a great footballer, however, he does care and he loves Everton. He does side just a limited footballer. Fair enough. Mike says, we need to reward effort as well as skill. Generally, DCL's a hard worker and scores lots of goals in a side that doesn't provide that many chances. He's my player of the year. Spot on, me too, mate. Saul says, second goal of Fulham away is a shout for me. Brilliant team goal it was. It was excellent. That was a very good team goal as well. And Ewan says, do you think Ben Godfrey will be in Gareth Southgate's squad? I hope so, but let's wait and see. Dugout says, great job as always, Cam. Thank you very much, Doug. Really appreciate that. Anyway, that's it for today. Big thanks for watching. If you have enjoyed this one, please do hit that like button. We will be back tomorrow around about 9:30 again for the first episode, the first sort of section of our our season review. We're going to be talking about the entire first half of the season, how it started, how well we started, and then we'll be back on Thursday for the second section of the review as well. So join us for that one, and then after this week's done with all of this season stuff, we can start getting on and talking about transfer rumours and all of that good stuff. Anyway, big thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this one, please do leave a like. Big thanks to everybody for getting involved in the live comments as well. Really do appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Leave your comments in the comment section of the YouTube video if you watch the YouTube video. Big thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon on the Mighty Blues.